I was about 7 years old, and I was watching my grandmother making Mahia. And my parents, they passed away in 2009, and I wanted to revive something that it was always in my family, which is Mahia.
Welcome to 18 Jewish Foods, Culture and History in kosher bite-sized portions. This podcast tells the stories of iconic Jewish dishes, shedding light on the people who eat them. Here's your host, Joel Haber.
A favorite joke of mine goes, "Why don't Jews drink?" Because it dulls the pain. I feel that jokes often reveal certain truths, and one of the truths that this joke reveals is that people believe that Jews don't drink. Not that we never ever drink, but that's not our vice. Of course, I know that Jews do in fact drink, sometimes a lot, and that is one of the main points of today's episode. And I'm going to prove this by focusing on an alcoholic beverage that is uniquely Jewish. It was invented by Jews, and mostly it is only drunk by Jews. But before we get to this alcoholic beverage, I want to talk a little bit about its development. One of the greatest ironies, I think, in culinary history is that the word alcohol derives from the Arabic language. And Muslims, who are most of the Arabs, not all of course, but Muslims don't drink. Connected with this is the fact that the modern distillation process actually was perfected in the Muslim world in 9th century Persia. So why is it that they were working on developing the distillation process if they don't drink? And the answer is that they were not developing it for alcohol. Rather, they developed distillation so that they could create rose water and orange blossom water. Only after the process was invented was it later then applied to alcohol. And the very first modern distilled spirit in the world is what is known as arak. Arak is very popular in Israel today, and it is a spirit that is traditionally distilled from grapes and flavored with anise, black licorice flavor. This is a beverage that was created in the Middle East, in the Arab Muslim world. And if the Arabs are not drinking alcohol, generally speaking, who in fact invented arak? There's not really a way to know because this happened a long time ago and nobody took note of it. But most scholars will speculate that either it was Jews or Christians, both of whom were living in the Middle East under Muslim rule, who took the distillation process and applied it to create an alcoholic beverage. Now, this is not the spirit that I'm pointing to because I can't prove to you that arak is a Jewish spirit. It is potentially a Jewish spirit, but that's not something we know with certainty. However, after arak was developed, it started to spread around the Mediterranean. And so you have many distilled spirits that are similar to it. So, for example, you have ouzo in Greece, you have pastis from southern France, etc. By the time you get all the way around the Mediterranean and you reach Morocco, there we encounter the spirit that is the subject of today's talk, which is Mahia. Mahia is also a distilled spirit that has anise flavor in it. But actually, one of the main differences from arak is that it is not distilled from grapes. Rather, typically it is distilled from figs, occasionally from dates. And when they distill the mahia from those figs or dates, they're not trying to distill it to the point of a neutral spirit. Some of that fig or date flavor is preserved so that the final taste of mahia blends that fruit flavor with the anise. In Morocco, this was exclusively a Jewish beverage. There weren't really many Christians in Morocco. Really, it was only the Muslims and the Jews. And the Muslims there primarily did not drink. And so it was almost only the Jews who drank this. Even if Muslims drank it, they probably weren't making it themselves. They were buying it from the Jews. One of the interesting things, though, that ties Mahia to many distilled spirits around the world is its name. Now, you might be saying, oh, there's no other spirit that I can think of named Mahia. And you're right, it's not named that, but the meaning is the same as many other spirits. Mahia, the name, comes as a contraction of a two-word Hebrew phrase, Mayim Chayim, which means the water of life, or living waters. And interestingly, there are many other distilled spirits that have the same meaning in their names. The word whiskey derives from the Scottish phrase Ishka Baha. Whiskey, Ishka, you hear the similar phrase, and in that language, it means water of life. In France, when you do a distilled spirit made from fruits, it is known as eau de vie, a water of life. And there's a very famous Scandinavian spirit known as aquavit. That too, aqua, like aqua, water, vit, life, water of life. All of these different spirits, all named for the water of life. And taking it one step further, guess where the origin of the word or the phrase Mayim Chayim is? It comes from the book of Jeremiah. And in Jeremiah, it is actually a reference to God. God refers to himself, or Jeremiah refers to God, as the water of life. And so when we look at these distilled spirits, they're being promoted as a very refined and highly respected spirit named for God himself. Now, Mahia is not only an old-fashioned thing that was made hundreds of years ago in Morocco, it is still made today. There are not many Jews left in Morocco, but I'm sure that of those who are, you will be able to find some who still make Mahia. But my guests for today's interview are carrying on the tradition and making Mahia now. In Yonkers, New York, you can visit the Nahmias Efes distillery. And David and Dorit Nahmias, back in 2012, created this craft distillery specifically to make and sell Mahia in the United States. So, David, you were born in Morocco, and you left Morocco in what year?
I left Morocco in 1976, and I went to France. I was in Jewish school in France for 2 years. And after that, I moved in 1978. I moved to Montreal. 70 years ago, you will travel all over Morocco and you will find some family in many, many towns that they were making Mahia. They were distilling Mahia. I was about 7 years old, and I was watching my grandmother making Mahia. And my parents, they passed away in 2009. And I wanted to revive something that it was always in my family, which is Mahia. And that's around 2012, we start building a distillery.
Was it abnormal or fairly normal that the people who were making it in your family were the women?
Mostly the women, yeah.
So, Dorit, you're making it here, right?
I made it. I am a fill-in distiller when he's not here, but David is the main distiller, and definitely he knows what he's doing.
And are you going to bring your daughter into the business after this?
Our daughters. We have 2 daughters, and they have no desire to be in the business, and we have 1 son. And yes, he's interested. He comes and helps.
Being that this is a Jewish beverage, Mahia.
Yeah.
And you are, I believe, the first in the United States who is producing Mahia. Tell me a little bit about your feelings about that, this continuation of this tradition.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I believe I am the first one who makes alcohol from figs in the United States. I mean, it's very interesting. A lot of people from community, they were proud. I mean, a long time ago, I used to go to different bars and I used to see exactly different drinks from different countries. So I said, why not Morocco? And the truth is, a lot of Moroccan Muslim, they supported me, and they were very proud of someone to bring a spirit that is Moroccan here. They were very happy. They were very happy that a drink that is originated from their country, it's being sold in United States.
And now it's over 10 years that you guys have, 12 years you've been open. So tell me a little bit about the journey of how the company has developed in that amount of time.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started, nobody knew what Mahia was unless you were from Morocco, or even if you went to Morocco, you probably didn't see it. Maybe you heard of it. So, so we started going basically door to door to different liquor stores in New York. It was just really a lot of footwork and getting it out there and doing events and talking about it. And we started developing a following. And then we started exporting too, back to Morocco. And there it's like in 40 locations and mainly like in the hotels. And also we sell a lot online.
In 2013, we were in New York Times. So this it helped us. People, they start learning about us. We were also in Haaretz.
So is there plans at all to export to Israel?
So back before October 7th, we were talking to an importer. But I think in Israel, the dynamic is a little different. First of all, Mahia, people confuse it with arak.
I've seen places that sell arak and call it Mahia. And I've even seen places that on the same bottle, they call it both.
It's used interchangeably because really people weren't making the real Mahia, which is made from figs or it could be made from dates, right? It's not neutral spirits flavored with anise.
Whereas in the Mahia, the anise is a lower, it's more of a layer, correct?
People, they don't like too much anise. So if you tell them it's made from figs, they want to smell the figs, they want to taste the figs.
Exactly.
So it's a process. I mean, we get figs from Fresno, California, and it takes 6 pounds of fig to make one bottle. So it's a lot of figs because it's not mixed with any other alcohol or sugar or, so it's basically a process. And the beauty of it, it's not something that you drink and you get this headache, hangover. You can drink half of the bottle and in the morning you are fine. So, many people, they told me this, so it's...
But the idea in the distilling is not to distill out the flavor. It is to maintain some of the fig flavor in there, correct?
Yeah. And at the time, they used to have small still, very, very small. They took them a long time to make. They used to make, couple bottles. So it's, we are, thank God. I mean, today we are very, very busy. Even we are thinking to move to huge space because our space become very small.
So that's kind of the next step for the company is to move to a larger facility.
Yeah. I mean,
we're crowded out here.
Great. It's a good problem to have. You mentioned in the beginning, you're the first doing this. People didn't know what Mahia was. Have you seen a noticeable penetration into the consciousness in America of what Mahia is and how it can be used and how good it can be? Or have you not yet seen?
Yeah. We've been educating. It takes time, but we've been educating a lot of media. I mean, also the media, they start writing about us. And this it help exactly for people to know about Mahia.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's a unique and different spirit. And if you ask somebody in Middle America what's Mahia, they won't have any clue. But definitely there is a growing following among people who consider themselves foodies or cocktail enthusiasts or spirit enthusiasts. Definitely, it's reached. It's building in there in those communities.
Great. I look forward to sampling it in a moment. And so we have a long tradition of Mahia being produced by Jews, being consumed largely by Jews in many places around the world. But Mahia is not the only Jewish distilled spirit or the only uniquely Jewish spirit. A little bit further east from Morocco, one can go to Tunisia. And in Tunisia, there is a spirit known as Boucha. And the pretty much only family that is named for it, but it's not just a homemade thing, it's actually sold and marketed, is the Bokobsa family. The Bokobsa family no longer lives in Tunisia. They now live in France. And they created Boucha back in the 19th century. Some of its origins are a bit cloudy and are based only on legend, but the family says that they founded the company or the process of making bucha in 1820. By 1870, it was already becoming more well-known in Tunisia, and it is still made by the family today. It is like Mahia, distilled from figs, but it is not flavored with anise. It is purely fig eau de vie. And one of my favorite little footnotes to the development of Bokobsa Bucha is that in the 1800s, in order to build it up, they used to have a horse-drawn still, and they would go from village to village in Tunisia and distill a batch of bucha for each village, or primarily for each village's Jews. So this is another uniquely Jewish spirit. There are others that I've not been able to yet dig up enough information, but I have feelings that are also uniquely Jewish. One might point to the sweet, syrupy kind of wine that is commonly recognized by some Jews in America as Jewish wine or as Kiddush wine. I'm talking about like Manischewitz style wine. The origins of this are widely known, that in Eastern Europe, where grapes did not grow well, or at least not wine grapes, the grapes that made the wine were not very good quality wine. And so one of the ways that you could make it taste palatable and also preserve it from week to week, because you're not going to finish a bottle in one sitting, was by loading it up with lots of sugar. I don't know if anybody else did the same thing, so I'm not claiming with certainty that that is a Jewish type of wine, but it is plausibly a uniquely Jewish type of wine. And another one that I've found a little bit more information on, but I'm still not certain, is that one of the other solutions in Eastern Europe, and also in some of the parts of the Muslim world, was to make raisin wine. Now, I do know that there are types of wine that are made from raisins, particularly in Italy. This raisin wine is not the same thing. These are actual raisins that were completely dried. I'm not talking about just letting the grapes dry somewhat and then turning them into wine, which is the Italian process. I'm talking about taking actual dry raisins and then soaking them in warm water to rehydrate a bit and to give some of their juice and flavor into the water, and then letting that ferment. And so this was a way of creating a wine-like substance, but doing it in areas where you had no access to fresh wine grapes. This was something that was done in many parts of the Jewish world and potentially was a uniquely Jewish preparation. Now, I said that one of the lessons of this talk is that Jews, in fact, do drink. And I think that we've seen from many of these specific Jewish spirits and specific Jewish types of wine that Jews do, in fact, drink. But I do want to point to one other lesson that I think we can learn from this, something that I discuss in a lecture that I give on the topic of Jews and alcohol. Basically, the reason that Jews are always making wine wherever we have gone is because the rabbis inserted wine into many rituals. Kiddush on Friday night, Havdalah, the end of the Sabbath, on Saturday night, 4 cups of wine at the Passover Seder, and many, many, many more. And yet at the same time, the rabbis also instituted a rule that said you are not allowed to drink wine that was made by non-Jews. So if we have a need for wine everywhere, and yet we can't drink wine that was made by non-Jews, that means we need to figure out a source for our wine wherever we live. Basically, alcohol sits at the frontier between Jews and non-Jews. And so when there's better relations, we have one type of relationship with alcohol. And in places where maybe there's more tension, we have a different relationship. That's why you have Mahia available in Morocco, where it was allowed, the Jews were allowed to make their Mahia. In fact, there are kosher wines that were created in Morocco and are still made today. And Morocco leads the Muslim world in the production of wine today. And then, as I said, there were other parts of the Muslim world where Jews were not allowed to produce wine and had to make that raisin wine. So you see that how we are relating to the non-Jews is reflected in our relationship with alcohol at that place. In my next episode, I'm happy to be welcoming Jeffrey Yoskowitz as my guest, and we will be discussing chopped liver. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Got any questions or comments? Please feel free to email me at jewishfoodbook@gmail.com. Please listen, like, and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and I would truly appreciate it if you'd share this with other Jewish food lovers. The theme music you hear is Adir Hu Revisited by Rebbe Soul. Check him out wherever you stream music. And as always, until next time, I wish you B'tei Avon.